Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is to help you create an ecosystem of academic excellence. Through inspiring conversations, practical strategies, and actionable insights, we empower educators, change makers, and leaders just like yourself. Do one thing: foster trust, collaboration, and ultimately provide you the tools, the methodologies, and the strategy to create an ecosystem of academic excellence. Today's episode is all about something I believe changes everything: presence. Now, when I say presence, I don't mean just being in the room, I mean showing up with intention, with energy, and with alignment. Whether you're walking into an interview or relationship, a classroom, or a boardroom, your presence speaks before you ever say a word. And here's what I've learned over the years of leading teams, running schools, consulting organizations, and still doing what I do as an entrepreneur. People don't remember your resume, they remember your presence. Today, we're going to talk about how to show up when it matters most. And we'll break it into 6 parts: some stories, insights, and practical tools that will help you bring your best self to every single space that you step into. But let me take you back for a second. Yesterday, I had the opportunity of connecting with some colleagues and was being interviewed, actually. Usually I'm the one doing the interview, but was being interviewed for a potential dream role in the higher education space. And what I realized is that there was one question that I was asked through multiple panel interviews that I had never been asked before. And interestingly, I've never shared this story before. So there was a time where I was on a board of a charter school in one of the southern states, and I was asked a question that transformed the rest of my life. So yesterday, I was asked the question of, Kyle, have you ever experienced any bias or something that um, was a crucial or that led to a crucial conversation, that maybe you had to have a tough conversation with something or someone about something that they said or something that they did? And it was interesting because when you are in spaces when you're being interviewed, you don't really understand. You don't have like all of these different stories just lined up in the back of your head because you don't really know what situational questions that they will potentially ask you. So for me, I wanted to be able to be authentic as possible. I always believe in authentic leadership. Minded at a charter school, and being on this board, there was a lot of history behind the name of the school. Um, there was history behind the woman that's name represented the school, and one of the members on the board was connected to that history. And there was a board meeting when we were discussing whether to discipline a student in the way of expelling that student or suspending that student for a lengthy period of time for a disciplinary infraction that they had committed. Now, if anybody knows me, and you should know if you've listened to any episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast, that I am just not the one to believe in expelling students. And even in this moment where we had to make this decision, I did not believe that expelling a student for the specific thing that they did at school, their specific actions, was was an appropriate response for the various things that they had done. And I think that's a bigger issue oftentimes in schools, is that we are making these decisions that can impact the rest of a student's future, the rest of a student's life, and even their family's life, and not considering um, how that could potentially trickle down to be able to impact the rest of their life. whether positive or negative. And as an educational institution, I always believe that we have the privilege, but then also the responsibility to set students up to succeed, not just find ways to be able to kick our students out of our systems. So at this time, where I made my argument on what I believe is best, what I believe we need to do as an institution, and how these decisions will continue to shape us as an educational institution. One of the gentlemen came back and communicated to me, why do colored people always defend colored people in the way that you're doing right now? And I paused, just like I just paused now. And yes, you heard correctly. And I asked directly to go into a closed session at that moment. Because, mind you, this is an open board meeting that there are parents and then there are other people at the table. And I still remember looking across the table at our chairman's face that was getting bright red. And he looked like he was getting ready to blow fire out of his ears. And when this comment was made to me, I had to remember the power of presence. I had to remember that how we show up in these moments matter most. I had to remember, as a Black man, I have a responsibility to hold him accountable, but also be graceful at the same time, because I have an opportunity to showcase that I am not the stereotypical person that you probably thought I was, in the way that I'm going to respond in this moment. So as we went into closed session, I communicated to him, look, I found it very inappropriate with what you communicated. This is why I find it inappropriate. And as an institution that has 75 to 80% of students of color that we serve and that we represent, we have to be mindful of the various things that we communicate out of our mouths, because in the wrong setting, that would have been a potential lawsuit. Let's start with what presence isn't. Presence is not confidence. Presence is not charisma. Presence also isn't having the perfect words. Presence is alignment between who you are, what you believe, and how you've shown up. I've sat across people from so many different backgrounds that have so many different views and perspectives, whether it be political perspectives, religious perspectives, relational perspectives, financial, all of these different things. And I've sat across people who could talk circles around a topic, but something was missing. Their words didn't feel connected to their energy. And then there are people who barely say much, but when they speak, they feel them. You trust them. You lean in. That's presence. Presence is a reflection of internal order. It's the clarity that comes when your values, your purpose, and your actions are in sync. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, I was leading a school that was underperforming. Teachers exhausted, to say the least. Morale was low, students struggling. And I walked into a meeting one morning with my leadership team, ready to roll out a new plan. I had the slides, the data, the rationale, but I didn't have presence. I was distracted, anxious, focused on optics instead of connection. Halfway through, I could feel the energy shift. It was like the energy dropped for a moment. I stopped, I closed the laptop, and said, let's just talk. How are y'all actually doing? What do you truly need in these moments? We're going to close the computers. We're going to turn off the slides, and we're going to turn off our tech, and we're just going to be present for a moment. In that moment, it shifted everything. It wasn't the plan that changed the culture. It was my presence. Here's what I want you to reflect on as a leader. When was the last time your energy shifted a room, for better or worse? Presence matters most when the stakes are high. Interviews, key meetings, and crucial conversations, yes. And let me bring you into a more recent experience, my day at Davidson College, like I was talking about a little bit earlier. I went in prepared, resume, track record, portfolio, but what mattered most that day wasn't my preparation, it was my presence because I was over prepared. I had a digital portfolio with a QR code ready. I had references ready, cover letter ready. I had my resume ready. I had all of the questions that were specific for the people that were on the team. And I had to remind myself so often, Kyle, don't perform, connect. And I focused on genuinely being curious, grounded, and truly grateful, humble within this opportunity. Every handshake, every question, every pause, I stayed anchored in authenticity. And what happened? The day didn't feel like an interview. It felt like a series of meaningful conversations. That's the difference that presence makes. It turns transactions into connections. So here's a quick tool that I want you to use. Before any big moment, try this 3-step presence check-in. Any big moment, try this. Number 1 is you need to pause. Take 10 seconds to breathe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The second step is purpose. I want you to ask yourself, why am I here? This third step is people. Focus on who you're serving, not how you're performing. Because if your energy serves others, your presence will take care of itself. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Here's the truth. Presence starts long before the moment you walk into the room. It's a reflection of your daily practices, your rest, your routines, your reflection habits. And when I'm consistent, meditating, journaling, running, eating clean, I'm grounded. I guarantee it. When I'm scattered, tired, or reflective, or reactive, my presence suffers. You cannot fake like being centered. You can't. Your body always tells the truth, whether your mouth will or not. So this is what I want you to do. I call it the morning mirror question. Before your day starts, look yourself in the eye and ask yourself this one question. What do I want to be when I show up today? Not just what, though. Who do I want to be when I show up today? Not what you want to do, not what you want to achieve, but who do you want to be? And if you anchor that question in purpose, I can guarantee your presence follows naturally. Because so many times in my life, professionally or personally, even the story that I gave at the beginning of this podcast episode, in that moment, I wanted to be a professional. In that moment, I wanted to be the person that holds people accountable to a higher standard. In that moment, I wanted to be different. In that moment, I wanted to be calm. In that moment, I wanted to be respectful. In that moment, I wanted to be a man of God, a man of faith, a man of grace. That's what I wanted. So when you're asking yourselves these questions, who do I want to be when I show up today? Who do I want to be when I get this interview? Who do I want to be when I see my wife or my kids tonight? Who do I want to be when I show up to my workplace? Who do I want to be? See, practice isn't about performance. Practice is about peace. And let's talk about how peace shows up in presence and relationships, personal, but then also professional as well. How many times have we been in a conversation where someone's body is in there, but their mind is somewhere else? They're nodding, but not listening. They're talking, but not connecting. Presence is love in motion. It's saying, you matter enough for me to be here fully. I've learned this the way in my life that has been so hard. I've learned this the hard way in my life so much with loved ones, with friends, with colleagues, with people that I truly care about. Sometimes I was so focused on being productive that I forgot to be present. But the people closest to us don't want our productivity, they want us. So I want you to set presence appointments, moments in your day, whether it's 10 minutes with a loved one or 5 minutes before a meeting, where the goal is to just see and hear, not to do. Because when you're present with people, you give them permission to be present too. Leadership presence isn't about command, it's about connection. People follow presence before they follow a position. I can guarantee it. Think about the best leaders you've known. Chances are they've made you feel seen, heard, capable. Their leadership presence is just different. It makes you want to run through a brick wall for these individuals. And when I train teams, when I train leaders or speak to teams, I remind them how presence is how culture begins. Every interaction, every hallway conversation, every email, every single decision carries your energy. So when you think about the weight that you're carrying, the energy that you're carrying, what does it say about you? When you embody three things, people start to mirror your energy. And then this is when it becomes contagious for you. These three habits of contagious presence. Number one is your clarity. Be clear on your purpose before you speak. Less words, more impact. Number two, consistency. Don't just show up for the big moments, please. Show up for the ordinary ones too. And number three, care. Lead with genuine care, curiosity, and just compassion and consideration for other people. Purpose. Purpose is necessary. But presence without purpose can become ego. Purpose without presence can become noise. But when the two meet, presence and purpose, that's leadership. And then it becomes magic. Presence transforms moments into movements. And you never know who's watching, who's listening, or ultimately being shaped by how you show up every single moment. One of the challenges that I'm growing through is showing up better in the moments and taking advantage of the moments. And I think about students that I once taught how a 30-second conversation could alter their sense of belonging, or the schools that I've worked with where one principal's quiet courage changed the entire culture. Those shifts don't start with policy, they start with presence. Where in your life do you need to be more present? What's one relationship, meeting, or mission that deserves more of you, more of your time, more of your energy, more of your focus, more of your presence this week? I want you to pause. I want you to breathe. I want you to decide intentionally, and then I want you to show up differently. Here's the final thought for you. Presence isn't a skill, it's a lifestyle. When I heard what I heard from that gentleman that called me a colored and associated all people of color as colored people, very derogatory term. It wasn't a quick skill that I used. It's who I was and who I continue to be. A man of grace, a man of faith, a man of forgiveness, a man of love. And when you walk into any space, you bring your energy with you. You bring your story. You bring your alignment. But I also want you to bring your awareness. I also want you to bring your boundaries. So ask yourself today, what story does my presence communicate? What story does my presence tell? Because the truth is, people don't remember every single word that you said. They won't remember what was on your resume, your metrics, or your achievements. But I can guarantee, and just in my experiences, they will remember how they felt in your presence. And that's, my friend, where legacy begins. That's, my friend, where contagious culture begins. That's, my friend, where change begins. The power of your presence and how you show up when it matters most will define not only the moments, but the rest of your life, the rest of your career, both professionally as well as personally. I want you to start being more mindful of the story that you're telling people about how you are, who you are, and what is most important to you. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who's trying to show up better in their work, their relationships, or their leadership. One of the questions that we literally always ask on the Contagious Culture podcast is, what type of culture am I spreading? See, the energy you bring is the culture you create. Make yours worth catching. Until next time, my friend, I want you to stay grounded. I want you to stay aligned. And as always, I want you to stay contagious. We'll see you next episode.